Holy cow, the stuff that people put on the comment section for these news articles just kills me. On these Tulsa World articles, articles in the KJRH or KTUL, people oftentimes confuse who it is that we're working with. There are a lot of different classifications. The first one that you hear of so often are illegal immigrants. So an illegal immigrant is someone who came into the United States without permission. They're undocumented, they're illegal. And many times they will have no recourse. The federal government has no program by which they can get relief and be legalized and stay in the country. Catholic Charities immigration program is unable to offer relief to them because there's no program. And so really we don't do a lot, unfortunately, if you will, to help illegal immigrants because there is no program. If someone comes in and asks for food, or if they have a need to have their teeth worked on in our dental program, that's not a concern for us. They're not coming for anything other than their pain and their suffering, and we love them and we care for them. So their status, whether they're white or black or legal or illegal, gay or straight, it doesn't make any difference to us. We're helping them because they're hungry, because they need their teeth worked on. So with illegal immigrants, our immigration program actually probably can't help them. We do work with legal immigrants, though, in order to help them gain citizenship and do all the tests and fill out all the paperwork that's required by the federal government. And that's a part of our immigration process. On rare occasion, we will find that someone was human trafficked. That's another word. And that would be that they were brought into the United States illegally, so they're an illegal immigrant, but they were brought against their own will. They were brought to be essentially like a slave laborer in a factory or on a migrant farm. Maybe they were brought in human trafficking as a nanny, but then they were used as a prostitute, and so they're a victim of sexual violence. Those people do have programs by which an illegal immigrant will be able to be kept in the United States, given a legal status because of their human trafficking status. So there's a lot that comes in with illegal immigrant that we can't do. Catholic Charities isn't able to help them because there's no program. With legal immigrants, we help many of them with processes with the U.S. government. And with human trafficking, oftentimes it's the government that calls us and says, will you help represent this person? So one other is an asylee. We don't hear about that as often, but it's an important category of people who come to the Americas. An asylee is someone who gets on a plane or crosses the border, they come on a boat, and they land in the United States, and they ask the U.S. government for protection from their home country. Probably the most famous category of people seeking asylum are people coming from former Soviet republics. So during the time of communism, you'd have a chess player come to the United States for a tournament, and while he was here, he would ask the U.S. government, don't send me back, I want to be an asylee. The most quantity-driven group of asylees have probably been the Cubans. People fleeing communism in Castro's regime, they would come, say, to Florida. They would ask the U.S. government, will you let us stay from political persecution? And so we do actually process asylee cases at Catholic Charities where someone has asked the U.S. government if they can stay because of what's happening to them in their home country. The U.S. government hears their case. They make a decision on whether or not that person actually was facing persecution. And if it's granted, then they become truly an asylee in the United States with rights and a path towards naturalization. Okay, now we get to the real heart of Catholic Charities conversation in the media in the last several weeks, maybe even several months. A refugee is someone that the U.S. government chooses while they live in their own country. So with immigrants come here, they're legal or illegal. With asylees, they come here, they ask for asylum. So all that happens in the U.S. Human trafficking victims are in the United States already as well. Refugees are staying in their home country and they're asking for permission to enter. And oftentimes they will be in the country that they were born in, or they will have fled from there into a neighboring country because of a war or a famine or a natural disaster like a hurricane. And so what happens then is they get classified as a refugee by the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Once they're considered a refugee for a particular country, the UNHCR sits down at the UN with all of the countries of the world. And those countries will look at the particular cases and they'll say, we would like to offer this person an opportunity to live in our country. Every country has a different number, has a different mix of countries they receive from, and it's all voluntary on their part. So in the United States, we have a history going back a long time. Catholic Charities has been involved since the Vietnam War of accepting refugees from various countries. The State Department Office of Refugee Resettlement chooses someone, they bring them to the United States. They're coming in legally. There's no such thing as an illegal refugee because they are chosen by the U.S. government. They're coming not only through Border Patrol and Customs, but through a process that is very involved with Homeland Security, where they go and do background checks on the person, they fingerprint them, they take DNA samples from them. They also will pass over their information to the FBI and make sure that they have no background with the FBI. They go through health screenings as well to make sure that they don't have things like tuberculosis or other diseases that they could introduce into the United States. So these are probably the healthiest, most checked out people that get on an airplane and come to the United States. If you're just like going to Disney World and you're from Germany, you just get on the plane and you come here with a visa, but there's no health screening for those people. There are for refugees, like charities. Almost everyone that's coming to Tulsa as a refugee is coming from Burma, about 85%. They're Burmese people. They may have fled the Buddhist government there who was roughing up Christians and Muslims. They fled to Malaysia, they fled to India. The people who are coming to Tulsa are Chin Burmese, who are Christians, almost entirely Protestant Christians, and they resettle in Oklahoma. After that, we have a number of people who are classified as Russians. Most of those are fleeing Crimea or the Western Ukraine war that's happening in Ukraine. And then there's a few sprinkled from other places. When they come here, we actually receive a stipend to help them get set up. And so the refugee is allowed $1,125 per person to help them get set up. It's given to them by the Office of Refugee Resettlement, the U.S. State Department. We actually administer that for them to make sure they use it for proper things. So typically what happens is they will come and we'll have an apartment already set up for their family. We've signed a lease for them and we furnish their apartment, and we're going to help them get clothing and transportation and so forth. So when that money comes in, we actually will write a check in their name to the apartment complex to make sure that they pay their apartment rent. Very little of the $1,125 is disposable income for the refugee. Most of it is money that we actually receive on their behalf and send on to a vendor, we would call it, an apartment complex, a doctor's office, even a car place to buy them a used car so they can get to work. That's the money that they receive. For all the work that we do at Catholic Charities, we receive up to $950 per refugee as well. And we use that money to buy vans and box trucks and pay for the gas on those to help the person, the refugee, get to their doctor's appointments, get their kids enrolled in school, get couches and mattresses moved into their apartment. We also have caseworkers, and those caseworkers are paid for by the State Department stipend that comes in for refugees. Now, what does the caseworker do, you might ask? They take them to those appointments, make sure that they ask the right questions, make sure that they present the right documents, that they are properly screened by our own health department, by the school system to get their kids enrolled and things of that nature. Those caseworkers also do cultural orientation to make sure that they understand the rules of our society and help them to learn how to obey those rules. And that could be anything from don't park in front of a fire hydrant to how you go grocery shopping and do that in a way that's appropriate. You don't buy all the olives at one time. You can always know that there will be olives there. They help them learn how to use money, how to use an HVAC, how to navigate a very complicated medical healthcare system, for example. Another thing the caseworker does is they go to their house multiple times to make sure that they're keeping up their apartment, to make sure that they're living in it properly, they don't have too many people living in the apartment. And in that way, we build a relationship with the refugee. We also make sure that they're going to be successful. Our caseworkers help them find jobs and build relationship with those employers, make sure that they're coming to work and doing a good job, and knock down any problems that the employer sees when they have 10 or 20 refugees working in the same facility and are working hard and getting promotions and doing everything that they should. Apartment complexes love our refugees. They want them to live there. They fight for them. The employers fight for our refugees. They want them because they're hardworking. They're good people. They're ethical. They want to get ahead. And so we've had really no trouble with the apartment complexes. We've had no trouble with the employers. It's been a great operating relationship with all of them. That's how the money is spent. When you look at all of the work that we do and what's reimbursed, we don't quite break even. We certainly also offer all of our GED classes, our dental, our pregnancy, our food and clothing, all the other programs that operate around Catholic Charities contribute to help them be successful, and none of that's covered by any kind of federal program. Now, it goes without saying that if most of the people are Protestant Christians, they're going to go to Protestant churches. And so we don't bring refugees over to kind of fill the pews in a Catholic sense. We don't receive donations from them. They're not obligated to go to church services for us. We're doing it because we see Christ in them, and we want to serve them. And we receive great joy in making ourselves available to another person who's been suffering. And we want to play a part in helping them to receive justice. So it's not about filling the pews. It's not about getting rich. It's really none of those things that you would see in the comments section of these various articles that have been posted. The last thing I think that we should probably cover is this idea of if you help one refugee, you've left other people aside. A lot of people have taken comments to the extreme of saying you help refugees and that means you don't like veterans or you don't like people in America. America first is a popular buzzword these days. We have about 60,000 people that we serve every year at Catholic Charities. And of those 60,000, it includes 350 refugees a year. So that's maybe 1/2% of our entire care base of the people we serve. We serve people here in Tulsa. We have a program in Bartlesville for education. We serve people in Okmulgee, in Muskogee, in Pryor, in Salisaw, in Poteau. And then we give grants out to 13 other locations around eastern Oklahoma. We're serving veterans. We're serving the elderly. We're serving the mentally ill. We're serving people who have addiction issues, who are pregnant. We have an interest in serving them not because of all of those little attributes that I've just mentioned, but we have an interest in serving them because we see Christ in them. We love people. Our mission is to be Christ's merciful love to them. Okay, so when we go back and look at asylees or immigrants or refugees, human trafficking victims, we could find things probably that would bother us or things that make you uncomfortable. But there are many things that should bring us to an understanding that we have a common humanity, an equal dignity, things that would unite us in suffering. I think we should be focused on those things. Instead of finding what tears us apart and focusing on that, let's find what binds us together. The love of Jesus Christ for each of us, the dignity that God has given to each of us, those are the things that we should take forward from this. I would ask you to consider helping us. Help us with our refugee services. Help us with our dental program, or to teach somebody and help them to get a high school diploma. There's so much good that we can do together that we need to not be focused on definitions or controversies, but instead focus on giving glory to God and lifting up our fellow neighbor. God bless you.